Today, we're breaking down a pretty high-stakes experiment. We wanted to know, can an AI actually give useful relationship advice? So we designed a test to push it to its absolute limit and find out. So we fed an AI a fictional relationship scenario, and after all the analysis, this was its final recommendation. Just 2 words, no hesitation, end it. It was a genuinely shocking moment, and it immediately raised a huge question for us. How on earth does a machine get to a conclusion that feels so final, so human? And more importantly, what can this weird, fascinating, and honestly, slightly terrifying journey teach us about where AI fits into our personal lives? Okay, before we get to the really juicy results, we have to talk about how this whole thing was run. This wasn't some reckless stunt. It was a really structured experiment with clear, ethical ground rules. We wanted to test this thing responsibly. Look, safety was the absolute #1 priority here. Every detail was a fictionalized composite, so nobody's privacy was ever at risk. We treated the AI like a tool, not a therapist, and a real human being reviewed every single suggestion it made. And this is crucial. Any decisions about safety or finances, they were never, ever delegated to the machine. And just to be super clear, this is an exploration. It is not medical or mental health advice. To track how the AI was performing, we created a scoreboard, something to measure the good, the bad, and the just plain weird. So here's how it works. Clarity gained is pretty simple. It tracks how much useful insight the AI actually gave us. The weirdness meter measures how robotic or just off its advice got. Risk level is our assessment of any potential for harm. And human overrides, that's how many times we had to step in and say, nope, absolutely not. As you can see, we're starting with a clean slate. Okay, with the rules and the scoreboard all set, we put the AI through 5 totally distinct tests, all based on that one fictional relationship snapshot. Let's see what happened to our scores. And wow, the results were kind of all over the place. On one hand, it was great at drafting these calm, useful scripts for having tough conversations. But then its tone got super preachy, labeling something minor, like a small delay in texting back, as a serious sign. And then it got just plain weird, suggesting things like sharing passwords or sending calendar invites titled relationship health. Yikes. So after those first 5 tests, here's where our scoreboard landed. The clarity score shot up to a +9. That's pretty good. But the weirdness meter also jumped all the way to a 7 out of 10. That pushed our risk level to medium, and we had to use that human override 3 separate times. Okay, this is where it all came to a head. After testing its ability to analyze little conflicts and suggest ways to fix things, we decided to ask the one question you're probably never supposed to ask a machine. We didn't beat around the bush. We just put it to the AI, direct and unfiltered, based on everything you know about this fictional situation. Should I end it? Honestly, we were braced for anything. Now, to its credit, it did not give a simple yes or no. That was its strength. It seemed to recognize the gravity of the question. But its weakness was really telling. It gave us this decision tree that treated the relationship like a software project, complete with rigid deadlines and milestones. There was no room for human emotion. And here is the final state of our scoreboard. Clarity gained 1 last point, maxing out at a 10. But that weirdness meter, it spiked to an 8, pushing the overall risk level to medium-high. The takeaway? The AI was helpful, for sure, but it was also getting dangerously out of touch with reality. So after all that, what did we actually learn? Let's forget the hype, forget the fear for a second, and just talk about the practical reality of using AI for this kind of personal insight. It really boils down to this. AI is great at tactical stuff, reframing a heated argument or helping you draft a neutral script to start a conversation. But it is terrible at the human stuff, the nuance, the timing, the emotional context. And here is the hard rule we came away with. Never, ever delegate final decisions about your dignity, your safety, or your finances. So here's the bottom line. Would we use it again? The answer is yes. But, and this is a huge but, only for the pre-work. Think of it as a tool to help you organize your own thoughts before you talk to a person, not as a machine to make the decision for you. So based on everything we learned, we put together a simple, safe use guide. If you're curious and you want to experiment with this yourself, this is your playbook. Okay, let's start with what AI is actually good for in a situation like this. Think of it as a tool for getting your thoughts in order before a big talk. You can use it to help you formulate better, more open-ended questions, and it can be surprisingly good at surfacing hidden patterns in a situation, as long as you remember to only feed it fictionalized info. And now for the most important part, the red lines, the hard boundaries. Here are the things you must never, ever outsource to a machine. Don't ask it for final verdicts or ultimatums. Don't use it to try and diagnose yourself or anyone else. Absolutely never delegate choices about your personal safety or your finances. And maybe the most important rule of all, never, ever let it replace a real, messy, beautiful, and necessary conversation with another human being. And that kind of leaves us with one final big question to chew on. If an AI is really just a sophisticated mirror that reflects our own questions back at us, what does our desire to ask it for a final verdict on our most human problems really say about us? That's definitely something to think about.